I'ma do this here forever.
EQ.
Forever.
Triune.
Forever.
Yeah.
Forever. I'ma do this here forever.
This is wide receiver Jeremy Curley of the New York Jets, and you're listening to the Short Sports Show.
All you haters better get comfy. This the day you've been waiting on. Y'all road is finna get bumpy. This the track I'm making my statement on. I ain't going nowhere. This the place that I'm making home. I'll do this shit forever. Hit the gas and I'm taking off. Ow. I was born with passion. My job is never ending and my hustle's everlasting. No matter what, I'm gon' ball. Even with my back to the wall. And the best part is that this is the beginning. I'ma do this here forever. Forever.
What is going on, guys? Welcome to the Short Sports Show. I am your host, Daniel Short. Today is a beautiful Monday morning, December 7th, 2015. How is everybody doing? I just want to start off by saying, of course, thank you to all you guys. Twitter has been going crazy in the best possible way, and it's just been awesome. The amount of people starting to follow the Short Sports Show. You can follow me at short_sports 24/7. Self-plug. And it's just been awesome to see the growth of this show, my YouTube channel with the Short Sports Show, and Twitter. It's just been awesome. I truly appreciate all your guys' support and everything you have done for me so far. It's been absolutely amazing. So I appreciate you guys so very much. Just got to start off with a good thank you for a Monday morning. We got a long week, and we got a long week without football. College football wise, of course. The next game, well, actually this Saturday, I believe we have the Army-Navy game. So that is something to look forward to. That's always a good game to watch. So at least we have that. But then after that, we don't have a game until December 19th, which is, 2 Saturdays from now. So until then, it's going to be kind of quiet. We're getting into that quiet mode until we get into the bowl games, which, of course, they're about, 60-something bowl games. So we have plenty to talk about, plenty of predictions, all these 5 and 7 teams and Mountain West teams going against each other in bowl game. How stupid is that by the bowl committee? In case you guys haven't seen it, there is a I forgot what bowl game it is, but it's Nevada taking on someone else on their I don't know, someone else. It's 2 Mountain West teams going at it. It's Nevada and somebody else, and both Mountain West conference teammates. It's just wow, really? We couldn't mix it up a little bit, throw other teams in there. They got to play each other. I don't know. It's weird. But anyways, for the intro of the song you guys just heard, that is by Triune and EQ. We give a special thanks to Triune and EQ for letting the Short Sports Show use the brand new single Forever for our new intro. You guys can go buy Triune's album Raised to Fail, Born to Succeed on iTunes right now. Also, if you want to buy this song, it is Forever, again, on iTunes as well. It is absolutely amazing. You can follow Triune on Twitter at iTriune and Facebook page, and all the links are down below in the description, no matter where you're listening to. So again, thank you guys for joining us, and let's get on with the show. We actually have a good amount of college football news and a discussion to talk about with the Heisman Trophy as we're getting closer to that as well this weekend. But we don't have a whole lot of NFL news, so the NFL section is just mainly going to be about talking about the games this week, recapping them, and also a little tiny news with, Johnny Manziel, Tom Brady, small things. But first, let's go on with the college football, and that is USC Trojans head coach Clay Helton cleaned house one day after his team's 41-22 loss to Stanford in the Pac-12 championship game. Helton said Sunday that he had fired defensive coordinator Justin Wilcox, defensive line coach Chris Wilson, defensive backs coach Keith Hayward, and offensive line coach Bob Conley. They will not remain with the program in the lead up to the Holiday Bowl against Wisconsin on December 30th. I said, quote, "With the coaches we have on staff and with our graduate assistants, we feel more confident in doing a great job with this bowl game. I like that. Imagine you're a graduate assistant coach. This is your time to shine right here. This is your time to shine to get possibly a job. I like it. Some interesting news for USC, though. Wide receivers coach T. Martin, who, of course, was Tennessee's quarterback back in the day and switched around as wide receivers coach, who, like Helton, was hired by Lane Kiffin and retained by Steve Sarkisian. T. Martin is a heavy favorite to be named the Trojans' offensive coordinator, the role Helton held until he was promoted to head coach. Helton remained with the Trojans as a play caller throughout the season, but said after being named the head coach, he does not want to call plays next year. And right now, T. Martin looks like the guy to go unless he makes some outside hire. But defensively in the Pac-12, Trojans haven't been that well. That's why it led to the firing of the defensive coordinator, defensive line, and DB's coach. Trojans ranked 4th in yards allowed per game with 401 yards, 4th in yards per play allowed per play, which was 5.82, 4th in scoring defense and 26 points, and 6th in points allowed per drive, 2.2, which I find the weirdest stat. Now we're getting more and more stats for every little tiny thing, and I find it weird in points allowed per drive. Like, I don't know. And then, like, per play, it's just very weird. But anyways, I like it by USC, saying, hey, this is my team now. I'm taking control, and we're going to make the right necessary hires. That way we can get USC back on top. And I was really happy when USC kept Clay Helton. I think it's a great hire. It's going to be interesting to see what USC does next year with the recruits coming in, getting hyped about next season and the future of USC. It's going to be nice. It's going to be nice to watch. Some great news. Now, we've talked about this before. You've seen many stories out there, many articles, other podcasts, other videos of people talking about, will the Big 12 expand? Should the Big 12 expand? Well, now, this isn't a rumor. This is something that's kind of maybe we'll push it to happen. Now, I'm a fan of the Big 12 expanding. I want it to be an actual at least 12 members in the conference. We will see, but this is an interesting thing that has now happened that might possibly push the Big 12 to expand to at least 12 teams. Check this out. The Big 12 was expecting a formal proposal of the deregulation of a conference championship game to pass easily next month, which would mean they could still have the 10 members and have a conference championship. Stupid, but could happen. But the Big Ten Conference filed a last-minute amendment in November that could prevent the Big 12 from having a conference championship game as early as 2016. So now we'll delay it possibly. And this is what Big 12 Commissioner said, Bob Bowsley. Excuse me. We don't think we ought to be forced into adding schools in order to have a championship game, but it could end up that way, end quote. Now, that was by the Big 12 Commissioner, Bob Bowsley. This would be great if he is somewhat forced now to add 2 more members, hint Cincinnati and possibly Memphis, into the Big 12. That's great. That's great. I want the Big 12 to expand. I want it to be different. And I think, Cincinnati would be good, especially for West Virginia out there. And then also having, Memphis or even Pittsburgh. You think about them, they're in the ACC and they're all the way up in the north. Bring them in, bring back the rivalry with West Virginia and Pittsburgh. Those are some great games back in the day. Those are some great games. You add that back together. Oklahoma, Pittsburgh could be interesting. Have a North and a South division. Have Memphis at the bottom in the South. I think it'd be fun. I think it'd be great. I know the UCF thing would be fun or USF, but I don't know if we're really ready for a Florida school because then that's just kind of reaching unless we add some more teams in between. But anyways, back to the whole point here. The Big Ten Commissioner Jim Delaney said that is not the intent to force the Big 12 to add teams, but it's kind of weird. Just check this out. This is what the Big Ten Commissioner Jim Delaney said, quote, "We don't think he should have to expand to have the same option we have, but we feel he should have a similar structure to ours." Kind of weird. Kind of weird. Doesn't really make sense, but stay with me here. Under the current rules, conferences must have at least 12 teams and 2 divisions. The Big 12 is the only Power 5 conference without a championship game, but was looking forward to having one under its 10-team format. And this is about to get into a different topic, so I still want to stay with it. The vote will take place at the NCAA convention in San Antonio on January 13th through the 16th by the 10 FBS members of the NCAA Council. The voting is weighed, meaning each of the Power 5 conference commissioners get 2 votes, and each of the Group 5, which are the non-Power 5 conference members, commissioners, only get 1 vote. But guess who is the Football Oversight Committee, the chairman of that committee? You guessed it, the Big 12 commissioner, Bob Bowsley. So in the end, it looks like this will still be passed where the Big 12 will still have only 10 members and still be allowed to have a conference championship game, which in the end, to me, it makes no sense to have that. Why have a conference championship game and you're going to have all the teams already play each other? Because imagine this. Imagine this is probably what's going to happen with the Big 12's luck. That gets passed and everybody plays each other in that conference. Let's say Oklahoma goes undefeated and TCU loses 1 game, and that was to Oklahoma that year. You have a conference championship game, then you have TCU going against Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship game, and what if TCU ends up beating the undefeated Oklahoma? That knocks Oklahoma out of the playoffs, but then what do you have with TCU and Oklahoma? Because now you split the series 1-1, because TCU had already lost previous season to Oklahoma, or the previous in the regular season to Oklahoma, but won in the Big 12 championship game. Now you just knocked out your undefeated Big 12 team. It's a whole lot of craziness right there. That's a whole lot of craziness. Why not just expand and have the conference championship game? All you need is 2 members. That's it. I understand you want to split the revenue and all that good stuff, but is it really going to hurt to bring in a Cincinnati or a Pittsburgh team, bring them in? Solid markets right there, am I right? I mean, great markets. You give West Virginia a little bit of help other than traveling to, Oklahoma, Kansas, Iowa State, even down to Texas multiple times a year. Help them out a little bit. That saves them a little bit. And also having, maybe a Memphis. I'm a little lenient on Memphis now that Justin Fuente is now gone. I don't know how I feel about, what if Memphis goes back to just winning 6 or 7 games. Then it's kind of like a bad addition. You could look at a Florida school like UCF or USF, maybe, but we all see how UCF is this year. I mean, they've only had, 1-2 good years out of the past, 30. So is that really worth adding them into it? USF, they're back and forth. I don't really know. It's going to be weird to add another team that's somewhat southern other than taking from a big conference. Now, me personally, I get all crazy when it comes into the Big 12 expansion. I would love to see both Florida State and Miami join the Big 12, then Pittsburgh. I mean, this would destroy the ACC basically. And I don't mean to destroy the ACC. It's just this is how it would happen. Add Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. That completes the North. And then you add Florida State and Miami, bam, right there. Or just one of those schools, preferably like Miami, and then throw a team that's in the middle somewhere like Memphis or... Now, I know the thought about Arkansas, but I highly doubt they would leave the SEC. Basically, it'd just be somewhat of a lateral move because I don't think they would be able to win the Big 12 with the way the teams are. But anyways, it'd be interesting to see. One quote that came out of this that I did not like, and I want to kind of lead into something, but don't want to stay on it too long, this is from College Football Playoff Executive Director Bill Hancock. This is what he had to say, and stay with me. Quote, last year people were in a panic that the Big 12 absolutely had to have a championship game, given what happened. They couldn't be in a playoff without the championship game, and here this year they're in the playoff without a championship game. 1 year it doesn't make a trend. I don't know that 2 years makes a trend, but clearly we know now that you don't have to have a championship game to play in this playoff. Here's what I have a problem. We said last year that if TCU had the name brand of Oklahoma or Texas, that they would have been in the playoffs last year. Obviously, it didn't happen. We all know the story. I don't need to repeat it. But it proved that point. Oklahoma, same record as TCU last year. Even the same record as Baylor last year. Both are out of the playoffs for not having a championship game. And then you have Oklahoma, the name brand right there, in the championship game. If you want to compare resumes, and I'm not trying to start a fight or anything, but if you want to compare resumes of last year's teams compared to this year's Oklahoma team, tell me that a TCU lost to Baylor that was ranked, 4 or 5 at the time, 6 or 7 at the time. Is that a worse loss than the Texas team of this year? And don't give me the Texas beat Baylor this year. We all seen how bad Baylor is now because of not having a quarterback, basically. So I don't want to hear that. But the Texas loss to Oklahoma, or Texas, win over Oklahoma. You're saying that Oklahoma had a better loss than TCU did last year? If you wanted to go to the Baylor side of it, Baylor lost to West Virginia in one heck of a game. You're going to say that loss to West Virginia is worse than the Oklahoma loss to Texas? I'm just saying. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's basically kind of like a brand thing. If you're TCU or Baylor, you have to be undefeated to make the playoffs. If you're Oklahoma, Texas, you can lose 1 or 2 games, and possibly you're still in the conversation of a playoffs, or you're in it. It's not right, but I didn't like that from him to say that because it brings back what was the deal? Now I know Ohio State fans, if you're listening, you're going to say, well, we deserve to be in it because obviously we won it all the way. I'm not saying anything about that. Because we all know Florida State should have been in it, but they went undefeated, sadly. Had they not gone undefeated, TCU TCU dropped to 6, so I don't know if they would have been in it. But, one of those teams would have made it, Baylor, possibly, I guess. But it just makes the thing where it's like, I don't know. I didn't like that quote. Just thought I'd throw it out there because it proved the point that if you have the brand name, you will be in the playoffs unless that other team that doesn't have a brand name is undefeated all the way. Just throwing it out there. Let's move on. We stayed on it too long. South Carolina made it official Sunday, announcing that Will Muschamp has agreed to become the Gamecocks' next head football coach. What are you doing, South Carolina? Wow. Muschamp interviewed with South Carolina officials earlier this week, along with several others, including Oklahoma offensive coordinator Lincoln Riley and South Florida coach Willie Taggart. Will Muschamp was Florida's head coach for 4 years, from 2011 to 2014, compiling a beautiful 28-21 record before being fired at the end of the 2014 season. Ladies and gentlemen, if I told you, hey, here's a scenario real quick. We have one coach that we could hire for our school in South Carolina. Now, this coach was the head coach at a Florida school, a big Florida school, and he could not win in 4 years. He only had one good year, but after that, it was basically garbage, and he couldn't win in the state of Florida. But we want to hire him here in South Carolina as our head coach, or should we get a guy that is won at Eastern Carolina? He's been great at Oklahoma. He just took their offense and just dominated everybody. Should we take him instead? Nah, screw it. Let's get the guy who couldn't win at Florida and make him our head coach here at South Carolina. Yeah, let's go with that one. Where does that make sense? I don't understand. If I'm a South Carolina fan, I am crushed. I feel hatred to my own school if I'm a South Carolina fan, because why would you hire a guy who couldn't win in a much better state of Florida with all the recruits and resources that he has, and you're going to bring him to South Carolina where it's much harder to recruit a kid to go to South Carolina than go to Florida? To me, it doesn't make sense. And especially a coach that can't win. Okay, given that he won 11 games and guided Florida to the Sugar Bowl in his second season as head coach in 2012. But after that, offensively, they couldn't do anything. They dipped to 4-8 in 2013. In 2014, they dropped to 6-5. During the 4 years, Muschamp had 3 different offensive coordinators. 3 different ones. And one of the worst offensive coordinators was Kurt Roper, who was now a Cleveland Browns assistant. And guess what? Guess who was just named the South Carolina offensive coordinator? You guessed it. Kurt Roper. He is now going to be the offensive coordinator. It's mind-blowing. Why would you not want to have a offensive genius in Lincoln Riley, a younger guy as well, and Lincoln Riley, be the head coach of your program and really get kids pumped up? To have a spread offense like he does and watch you just be able to really compete and win a lot of games in the SEC. Then bring in Will Muschamp, a guy that maybe he is a great defensive coordinator, but he's a terrible head coach. We've heard this many times from different coaches. They're just better at defensive coordinator. They're just better at an offensive coordinator. I find it shocking. I really do. But apparently he was a favorite all along, and that's fine. I just don't expect. I think 6 wins would be a great year for South Carolina with Will Muschamp his first year. 6 wins would be a great year if that happened. Clemson wide receiver Mike Williams will not return for the playoffs, but will be back in 2016. Now, if we all remember, back in Week 1, Williams collided with the goalpost while hauling in a touchdown grab and then injuring his neck and missing the entire season this year. He was considered one of the top prospects in the nation at wide receiver entering the season after he averaged better than 18 yards per reception last year with 6 touchdowns and 1,000 yards. So obviously very crushing for him not to be able to play in the playoffs and possibly even the national championship game. But, you know, safety is always better, especially if you know you can have him guaranteed for next year. And also, I'm pretty sure he'll get a medical red shirt this year. Moving on, and to our last topic for college football before we go on to recapping some of these games, is who is the Heisman Frontrunner? Who are the Heisman candidates? Can we narrow it down now that the regular season is over with? And there are a lot of good ones out there. There really is. And this one is probably going to be the hardest one to actually pick. Now, last year, it was kind of tough, but we kind of figured that it was going to go to Marcus Mariota. Now, Amari Cooper did a great job. Melvin Gordon did an excellent job, but we kind of just knew Marcus Mariota, what he had done the past 2 years. And the way the whole season was, we've kind of figured, this is it. It's got to be Marcus Mariota's year. Now, this year, it's different. We started off the season with Trayvon Boykin of TCU quarterback and LSU running back Leonard Fournette. And it was them for majority of the season. Sure, we had possibly, whispers of Derrick Henry at Alabama, Ezekiel Elliott, and a few others that were just, baby whispers. Then came on Derrick Henry really strong, especially after Leonard Fournette just had a terrible game against Alabama, and Derrick Henry had an amazing game, or a great game against LSU. Then Deshaun Watson leading the nation's number 1 team, the season he's had so far, that's great. But we do have a guy named Christian McCaffrey, a sophomore out of Stanford, who sliced and diced the Trojans for 461 total yards in the Pac-12 championship game. He rushed for over 207 yards, averaged 6.5 yards per carry, and he caught 4 passes for 105 yards. Scored 2 touchdowns. He also threw a touchdown pass and returned kicks. All in that game in the Pac-12 championship game. By doing that, in the second quarter, Christian McCaffrey broke Barry Sanders' NCAA single-season record for all-purpose yards with 3,250 yards. It's incredible. So now we have one of the tightest races we've had in quite a while, with Alabama running back Derrick Henry, who's just been a dominant rusher this season. Back-to-back games, over 40 carries. He had 44 in the SEC championship game against Florida, and he had 46 against whatever team before that, against Auburn. Clemson quarterback Deshaun Watson, again, the productive heart and soul of the nation's number one team. But there's no question that eclipsing Sanders' record, perhaps the best running back in college football history, pushes McCaffrey into this Heisman race officially. If it hadn't been already, it has been thrown in there. But I also want to keep it out that let's not forget TCU quarterback Trayvon Boykin. He was a front runner as the Horned Frogs were 8-0 before losing to Oklahoma State. Later in the season, he injured his ankle versus Kansas on the second series of the game. Missed that game. Missed the game against Oklahoma. But by still missing those two games, Boykin leads all other quarterbacks, including Baker Mayfield, Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott. I don't know why his name keeps coming up, but him too. And Boykin leads all those quarterbacks in passing yards, passer rating, passing yards per attempt, and Boykin is only down 4 passing touchdowns to Oklahoma quarterback Baker Mayfield. But Mayfield played, 11 and a half games? And Boykin only played 10. We all want to forget about Trayvon Boykin for some weird reason, but you've got to, if the Heisman Trophy is really about what you do on the field and the type of person you have been off the field as well, and you cover everything. I wish I should have had the quote on here, what exactly the Heisman Trophy represents and what that player must represent. You look at what Boykin's done with the people that he has touched. The little girl who was in the wheelchair against the Iowa State game, she had something. He goes there to talk to her, and she's an Iowa State fan. Then you have when Oklahoma State, and Boykin has his worst game of his career. After that, Oklahoma State fans, they want to shake hands, they want autographs, they want pictures, and he's still there after taking the biggest loss and knowing that the playoff hopes were basically almost gone unless they finished out beating Oklahoma and Baylor. That, everything was really shut right there. Still took the time to do all that. It'd be a shame if Trayvon Boykin does not. He's probably not going to win the Heisman Trophy. Most likely will not. But it'd be a shame for him not to get an invite. It should be the 4 players that are there, which is Derrick Henry, Deshaun Watson, Christian McCaffrey, and Trayvon Boykin. Because if you want to look at the other quarterbacks that have won, including Johnny Manziel, Robert Griffin, they've all had worse games stat-wise than Trayvon Boykin did. And they had more losses to their team than Boykin did during his run. So we'll have to see. Again, Boykin does have, if you want to throw Deshaun Watson's name in there, Boykin does have more passing yards, a better passer rating, and passing yards per attempt, and more touchdowns than Deshaun Watson does. Deshaun, again, of course, played 12 games, 13 games. And Boykin's only played 10. Just throwing it out there. Now, Watson does have more rushing yards, but, whatever. But it is something interesting. I want to hear what you guys have to say in the comment section below. Who is your Heisman frontrunner? Who do you believe will win the Heisman Trophy, and why? Don't just say, Alabama running back Derrick Henry because he's a beast. Why? Give an explanation. Why do you believe? Why do you believe Deshaun Watson, McCaffrey, someone we didn't talk about, Mayfield? If you say Dak Prescott, I'm deleting the comment. Actually, I'm not going to delete it. I'm just going to leave it up there for everybody to laugh at. I don't understand why his name keeps coming up. I keep seeing it. I have no idea. It's just weird why his name keeps coming up. Finally, real quick, we'll go to the rankings, the final rankings of the college football playoff. Now, remember, these are the last rankings before the bowl games. And then after the bowl games, there will be 2 more rankings, which is of course, the after bowl rankings. And then I believe a couple weeks later, or a week later, after all the bowl games and after the championship and everything, I think like 2 weeks later, something like that, there's the final rankings of the 2015-16 season. And then, of course, in July or August, we get the 2016 rankings. So just remember, there's still 3 more rankings to be out. I know it's weird. But anyways, of course, your top 4 are Clemson, Alabama, Michigan State, and Oklahoma. 5 through 10 is Iowa, Stanford, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Florida State, North Carolina. 11 through 15 is TCU, Ole Miss, Northwestern, Michigan, Oregon. 16 through 20, Oklahoma State, Baylor, Houston, Florida, LSU. And finally, 21 through 25, Navy, Utah, Tennessee, Temple, and USC. So that is it. And we'll recap some of these games real quick now. Exciting games in college football. And really the most exciting game had to be the Michigan State and Iowa game. Because we knew what it all came down to. Michigan State would be in if they win and they do a good job winning, not a sloppy game. Iowa, undefeated. They would finish out the year undefeated if they win. Of course, and then also into the playoffs. And this whole story that Iowa's had, and it didn't happen. The last-second touchdown for Michigan State to win it, 16-13 final score. A tough-fought game, and I feel bad for Iowa. I really do, because this whole season, including myself, I was one of them that just said, no, Iowa's going to fall at some point. It's just going to happen. And we all thought it before the Big Ten championship game. It didn't happen. Iowa does an amazing job and goes all the way. And it gives Michigan State one heck of a game. And maybe if there's a little bit more time left, Iowa could have, won the game. It didn't happen. Michigan State goes on to the playoffs. Iowa will be going to the Rose Bowl against Stanford, which is going to be a fun game to watch with Iowa's power running game and Christian McCaffrey, him running and receiving and doing everything, even throwing the ball and painting your back porch. Christian McCaffrey against Iowa's defense is going to be fun to watch. But, again, Michigan State gets the W, 16-13 in the Big Ten championship game. North Carolina and Clemson go at it in a shootout game, but ultimately this game wasn't that close. Clemson just really handled this game very well and wins the game 45-37. Deshaun Watson, 289 yards, 3 touchdowns, and really take control as Clemson wins this game 45-37 and keeps the number 1 ranking and the pizza party they had. Fun. Alabama and Florida, while it looked close with a 12-7 halftime lead, Alabama over Clemson, Alabama just does that thing where it'll tease you in that first half. Say, hey, we're going to let you think you're in it, and then in the second half, we're just going to blow you away, and you never had a chance. As Alabama wins 29-15, just a sloppy, weird game, and Derrick Henry, I swear, he is not going to be able to make it in the NFL. And you got to think, ex-NFL scouts and, anybody who is watching Derrick Henry got to be thinking, this guy has carried the ball, 80-something times? Almost 90 carries, if not 90 carries the past 2 games. It's a little too much. A little too much. Derrick Henry, 44 carries, 189 yards, and a touchdown. Calvin Ridley, a guy to remember at wide receiver for Alabama, 8 receptions, 102 yards. And Jay Coker, while he's not the flashiest quarterback that we have seen, he's one of those guys that probably back in the 80s and 70s would have been a fantastic quarterback. Right now, not so much. But he gets the job done. 18 of 26, 204 yards, and 2 touchdowns as Alabama rolls on. Stanford dominates USC 41-22. Cody Kessler did all he could, but just couldn't get past this Stanford defense. 22 of 37, 187 yards, and a touchdown. Again, McCaffrey, just the all-purpose guy. 207 yards rushing, 105 receiving. Does everything. What about Texas beating Baylor? They were leading 20-0 in the first half. And, guys, there was no bad weather. It was a perfect day. It was sunny. It was a cool breeze. It was fine. Shows you that Chris Johnson is not the quarterback they need. And then when he goes down, the other quarterback, Lynx Hawthorne or whatever his name was, is just it's just not good. But whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Tyrone Swoops does okay. 12 of 19, 151 yards, and a touchdown for Texas. Johnny Jefferson, a running back for Baylor, 23 carries, 158 yards, and a touchdown. Shock Linwood, I guess, is still banged up. Didn't play a whole lot against TCU. Barely played against Texas. And Johnny Jefferson, while he does some good things, he also gives up the ball a lot. I believe he fumbled once or twice in this game as Texas goes on to finish the year 5-7 without a bowl game, though, and beats Oklahoma and Baylor. Now, the funniest thing I saw on Twitter said, I forgot who it was from, but they said, if you told all the Texas fans, or any Texas fan, that this season, at the end of the year, you would have beaten Oklahoma and Baylor, that Texas fan would have thought this was just an amazing year, thinking, okay, probably those are, we probably won all of our games, or majority of them, obviously probably losing to TCU, but maybe losing to Oklahoma State, but that means maybe we're 11-2, 10-2, or something like that. We've done great. Not so much. But it is crazy that Texas does beat Oklahoma and Baylor in the same season. And they still suck. It's kind of funny. And finally, Temple and Houston went at it in the AAC championship, and Greg Ward Jr. This was a fun game to watch if you guys didn't. Greg Ward Jr., 148 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Amazing job passing, did great as well. Houston wins, goes 12-1, and they're going to be in one of the most interesting bowl matchups, which is Houston against Florida State. That in the Peach Bowl is going to be a fun game to watch. It truly, truly is. You got Florida State, and they're all back. Dalvin Cook, who is going to be looking for some sweet spots, but people, you cannot underestimate Houston's defense. This defense will. It's a truly bend, but do not break. And they don't bend too often, and they definitely do not break. This team will force turnovers like crazy, and that defense will attack and make Sean McGuire or Everett Golston throw a few picks. I guarantee it. How they contain Dalvin Cook is going to be interesting. I don't think they've played a running back. I know for sure they have not played a running back like Dalvin Cook all year long. It's going to be exciting to see what Houston does for that. But also Florida State playing an offense like Houston that spreads you out. Greg Ward obviously can run and throw. I know he got a little banged up in the game. I think he was able to come back and finish off the game well. And obviously should be 100% by bowl game. But it is going to be exciting to see those Houston wide receivers going against Florida State's DBs and defense. Dalvin Cook against Houston's defense. Fun game. We'll get into all the bowl previews as the week goes by, and as they are about to happen, we will preview them. So do not worry, but we're not going to get jump in it too soon. We don't want to do it too soon. Now on to the NFL. Again, tonight we have the Dallas Cowboys at Washington. Ooh, almost slipped up right there. 7:30 Central Time on ESPN. Supposed to be 37 degrees, but clear skies. Washington is a 3.5-point favorite. I'm going to take Washington here just because they seem to they're finding something happening. They're just finding a role here. And Dallas, they haven't won without Tony. So now they got to get through the entire year without him. I want to see how this team is. Now, I'm not going to be upset if Dallas wins. I hope Dallas wins. But, I can't pick them. I don't think there's a lot of people that can pick them right now, especially how Washington is playing with their offense. Kirk Cousins is finding his role here, and Deshaun Jackson getting warming up and getting hot here. I just think Washington wins this game. Again, this weekend we had overtime game with the Jets and the Giants just let it slip again. They were up 20-10 at halftime, scoring 20 points in the second quarter, and then that was it. They were shut out the rest of the game. as the Jets would go on to win it in overtime, 23-20. Ryan Fitzpatrick, 36 of 50, 390 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Odell Beckham does it again, 6 receptions, 149 yards, and a touchdown. The Cardinals improved to 10-2 with a victory over the St. Louis Rams, 27-3. Carson Palmer, 356 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The Buccaneers even it up and sweep the Atlanta Falcons, which is huge for the playoff picture for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as both teams are 6-6 right now. But again, Buccaneers have now beaten the Falcons twice this season, so if they end up with identical records, Buccaneers get in over the Atlanta Falcons. Matt Ryan, 269 yards. Doug Martin, 95 yards rushing. Julio Jones, 93 yards receiving. And just an amazing game. An amazing game it was with Jameis Winston. And Falcons, 5 straight losses now. The Seattle Seahawks, I don't think anybody saw this coming. Just absolutely demolished. 21-0 at halftime, and then go on to win it 38-7 over the Minnesota Vikings in what was a playoff preview right here. Russell Wilson just untouchable, 21 of 27, 274 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Thomas Rawls, who did fumble once but got back early in this game, 19 carries, 101 yards, and a touchdown. Doug Baldwin has just gone off the past 2 weeks. 94 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns. 38-7. The Seattle Seahawks improved to 7-5, and you do not want to play them right now. And Minnesota Vikings dropped to 8-4. Which actually, the Packers are also 8-4, so I believe they are both tied for the number 1 spot in the NFC North, which is Vikings. This was your chance to step up here. Texans drop to the Bills 30-21. Tyrod Taylor, 4 total touchdowns in this game. Sammy Watkins, 3 receptions, 109 yards, and a touchdown. The Baltimore Ravens drop again to the Miami Dolphins, 15-13. Just a really ugly, boring game. Miami is just not fun to watch right now. I have no idea why. Their offenses went skyrocket to just dropped. Lamar Miller, 20 carries, 113 yards. Matt Schaub, another pick 6, and the internet went crazy on him. It's just weird. I don't understand what his thing is and how he's cursed with pick 6s. It's just incredible. He did have 308 yards passing and a touchdown, but the pick 6 ultimately is what somewhat cost him the game. The Bengals improved to 37-3 as improved to 30. Wow, no, they went 37-3. The Bengals improved to 10-2, while the Browns dropped to 2-10 now. Austin Davis, who started the entire game over Johnny Manziel, even when they were down, they said, nope, we're going to keep Johnny football in, which is incredible. Austin Davis just couldn't get it done. 230 yards and an interception. Jeremy Hill, 98 yards rushing. AJ Green, 5 receptions, 128 yards, and a touchdown. But, of course, as expected late last night, and now officially announced just right now this morning at 10:04 a.m. Central Time, Johnny Manziel is now named the starter of the Cleveland Browns. It has just been officially announced. We had a lot of sources talking about it last night, and it is official. He will start the rest of the games. And it's just like, well, what was the whole point of now? Well, why not play him yesterday? He was grounded, apparently, guys. He was grounded. And yesterday was his 23rd birthday. Watch from the bench. And now he gets his birthday present. But can he not party? Can he kind of stay away? I wonder if he actually does it, stay away. Probably the funnest game yesterday that wasn't talked about had to be the Jacksonville Jaguars going against the Tennessee Titans, the Tennessee Titans finally win their first home game. They did it. They're 1-6 at home right now. But it was an amazing game, and I wish I had watched the entire game. I wish I had the full game of it. I really want this game. Hopefully iTunes, the NFL, hopefully put this entire game up because it is a game to watch, and it is what shows what the future will be like in the next 3, 4, 5 years with this Jaguars-Titans rivalry. the records that they have right now will most likely be opposite come those next few years if the teams progress the way they look, because this is going to be a fun, exciting rivalry like it was back in the late 90s. Blake Bortles, 322 yards, 5 passing touchdowns for Blake Bortles. Marcus Mariota, 9 carries, 112 yards and a touchdown. Also threw for, I believe, like 300 or 400 passing yards and multiple touchdowns. Had an amazing day himself. Allen Robinson for the Jacksonville Jaguars, 10 receptions, 153 yards, and 3 touchdowns. This is going to be exciting. Most likely going to be shootouts until one of these defenses gets settled down over the next few years. But it's going to be fun watching Mariota and Blake Bortles and these two teams go at it. It really is. I don't know if I'm the only one pumped other than Titans and Jacksonville Jaguars fans, but I cannot wait. It's going to be fun watching these two teams play. The surprising victory had to be the 49ers beating the Chicago Bears in overtime 26-20. Jay Cutler, no passing touchdowns, but a pick six that he threw. And the 49ers win this game. Blaine Gabbert. Oh boy, Blaine Gabbert. He's going to be the guy. Wow. The Broncos defeat the Chargers 17-3. Phillip Rivers, 202 yards and a touchdown. Really didn't do too much. Demaryius Thomas, 61 yards receiving and a touchdown. And the Chargers dropped to 3-9 as the Broncos jump to 10-2. And here's two quick thoughts. One, I hope the Chargers lose the rest of the games. I really do. I want them to lose so we can have the first pick. But right now, it looks like the Cowboys and the Browns are going to beat us for that spot. But Chargers, just lose the rest of the games. Do us all a favor. But one last thing. Now, I've said this many times before, many shows before. I said, with all this fight that, Chargers, the San Diego fans want to keep the Chargers in San Diego, that they shouldn't go to L.A., all this other stuff. Well, did you look at the stadium? I didn't see blue and gold. I saw blue, dark blue, and orange. The Chargers do not belong in San Diego. They need to move to L.A., which should happen. But I'm just saying, if you're a San Diego fan, no matter if you're a Chargers fan in San Diego, you have to go to these games and can't have the, quote, home games be away games, basically, for these players. Moving on, Chiefs beat the Raiders 34-20 after Derek Carr just throws multiple interceptions and makes some bad decisions as the Chiefs didn't capitalize to improve to 7-5 while the Raiders dropped to 5-7. And just a fun game to watch if you're a Chiefs fan. If you're a Raiders fan, it was like, man, there's the hope and the potential, and then we just kind of crashed down. The Panthers stay undefeated at 12-0 while the Saints dropped to 4-8 with a 41-38 win for the Panthers. Cam Newton, 28-41, 331 yards, 5 passing touchdowns for Cam Newton. Also, I believe had a rushing touchdown. Jonathan Stewart, 82 yards rushing, and Greg Olsen, 9 receptions, 129 yards for him. Woo, Panthers. Fun to watch. At first, it was like a low-scoring game. We're like, what is happening here? This is the Saints defense. Panthers supposed to blow this team out. Then it became a shootout. The Eagles did what they had to do, and the only way to beat the Patriots is to force a few mistakes, make them big gains, and possibly touchdowns, which they did, and have Darren Sproles return punts for touchdowns. Tom Brady, 29-56, 312 yards and 3 touchdowns. Darren Sproles, 66 yards. James White, a running back for the Patriots, 10 receptions, 115 yards, and a touchdown receiving. Eagles win and improve to 5-7, 35-28 as the Patriots drop their back-to-back games. 10-2 now for the Patriots. Still not bad. And finally, Sunday night, the Steelers just absolutely crush the Indianapolis Colts, 45-10. Ben Roethlisberger, 24-39, 364 yards and 4 touchdowns. D'Angelo Williams, 26 carries, 134 yards. And Antonio Brown with one of the weirdest touchdown celebrations by just basically throwing himself into the goalpost and then just falling. I don't understand what he's trying to do. He had 8 receptions, 118 yards, and 2 touchdowns in that game. Steelers improved to 7-5, while the Colts dropped to 6-6. And for the playoff picture, for everybody want to know, obviously, Panthers have clinched the playoffs and I believe have won the NFC South. They're 12-0. Cardinals are the second spot at 10-2. Packers are number 3 at 8-4. Washington, Washington is 5-6 at the 4th spot. Vikings drop to the 5th spot at 8-4, and the Seahawks are 7-5 and in the 6th spot of the playoffs. On the AFC side, Bengals moved to number 1 at 10-2. Broncos are now the number 2 seed at 10-2, and the Patriots drop to the 3rd seed at 10-2 as well. Colts go to number 4 at 6-6. Chiefs go to are now 7-5. They go to the 5th spot, and the Jets, who are also 7-5, go to the 6th spot. So an amazing game tonight again on ESPN. The Dallas Cowboys taking on Washington, 7:30 Central Time on ESPN. The line is Washington 3.5, and I will take Washington on that. Thank you guys so much for listening to the show. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, be sure to hit that like button. Follow me on Twitter at @short_sports 24/7. Facebook page, The Short Sports Show. All links are down below in the description no matter where you're listening to, whether it's YouTube, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Spreaker.com, wherever. Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed. I will be back this Friday morning to preview all these games for the NFL and talk some sort of college football news if there's any at that time. But again, thank you guys. This show would be nothing without you. You guys have done a tremendous job sharing and liking, tweeting, following, favoriting, every single thing, rating on iTunes. Thank you guys so much. As always, God first, God bless, and I will see you guys Friday morning. I'm out. Peace.
Here forever, forever. I'ma do this here forever.
I didn't came way too far for me to stop it now. I didn't work way too hard just to drop it now. We came strong, we conquered. On this field, boy, I'm a monster. This ain't got nothing to do with no dollars. Sponsors and pockets. If you got it, you got it. This hero won't squander my pride and my honor. The glory, the promise. Put it all on this field, leave none of these lockers. Leave none of these lockers. If this is real, I put it all on this roster. Put it all on this roster. When winners and answer, we really got problems.